Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
Okay, here we are on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. Oh, it's, adrenaline. Adrenaline.
Oh my god.
There's so many gremlins.
Played it like 40 times before
so
the
many gremlins.
finished.
So many gremlins in this system.
Oh my god.
Okay, we're now on stream, and you're listening to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM, broadcasting out of Edge Radio Studios in Nipaluna, Hobart, Tasmania. I am your host, Craig.
The technologically advanced Craig.
That's right. Techno Craig, joined by co-host Taylor.
Yeah, hey.
All right, and on Media Mothership, we explore how media shapes our understanding of the world around us. Today, we're going into a deep dive on anime again.
Woo!
Okay, yep. So we're picking up where we left off before with a bit of a time capsule back into a historical artifact from 1995, the year you were born, Taylor.
Yep, that's me.
And this year, 1995 is a fascinating year to travel back to. In particular, we're looking at the emergence of a strain of anime into the West.
Yep.
And this is we're going to be breaking down an article from a magazine called Comics Interview, and this is their feature piece, their spotlight piece, which was exploring a group of Western comic artists. Right? They had a guy that does Batman, and they have an indie artist, and they had Will Eisner was there, quite a well-known comics artist, and
Not that well known.
well, in 95, and still well known today. Will Eisner, well worth looking up, and basically the Tezuka Foundation, and Tezuka, of course, one of the leading figures in Japanese manga and anime. Many
Because
people,
he did.
Astro Boy, Kimber the White Line, the Princess Ribbon.
I liked Kimber the White Line.
Kimber the White Line. Hitler.
Okay,
Adolf.
brilliant.
Actually, the name of that series is Adolf.
Nice.
And Buddha, Phoenix, Blackjack. And basically what's fascinating about Tezuka's career, many people kind of try to explain partially his importance by saying he's the godfather of manga and anime. Certainly of anime, he was influential as a key figure in starting the anime TV industry, or getting momentum with anime TV through Astro Boy. Many people point to him as the godfather of anime, or Japan's Walt Disney. But much more than Walt Disney, he straddles so many different styles and conventions of manga art, and very much that archetypical, stereotypical style of big eyes and childlike features are all...
Well, just Astro Boy, isn't it?
Yeah. If anyone has Astro Boy or Kimber the White Line, it was really established by Tezuka, who was drawing heavily from his enjoyment of Disney films, Bambi, Snow White, the way the anthropomorphic characters are portrayed, big eyes and heightened emotions. But then, of course, he's really famous for going across both, comics for boys, comics for girls, the Gekiga style, which is a kind of a gritty storyline.
Blood.
Some of the famous Gekiga and manga from the 70s, Lone Wolf and Cub, right? So samurai.
Yep. The well-known, yep.
Have you seen Lone Wolf and Cub?
No, never heard of it.
It's a fantastic movie series.
Okay.
Samurai Assassin was what it was dubbed into. Tarantino raves about it.
Oh, that's a reason to not like it, really.
It's in Kill Bill as a reference. Anyway, so Tezuka also did some Gekiga stuff. So yeah, amazing stuff. So basically, this is 95. So this is what 7 years, I think, after he passed away.
Okay.
Tezuka Foundation's there, Tezuka Museum's there. Tezuka people flew these Americans over to Tokyo as a kind of loosely defined summit for comics.
So the first Comic-Con.
No. This is not fancy. This is industry based. Well, the Comic-Con is kind of, I guess, industry oriented, but this is very much a kind of, nascent Japan curiosity in Western reception, growing interest in manga and anime. It's interesting because a lot of the interview. So what we're going to dive into here is an interview called East Meets West, which is rich with insights into what the American comics industry perceived the manga industry to be about in 95. So this was, again, a really early period in that growing popularizing of manga and anime. So it's worth dipping into because there's a couple of interesting connections 30 years later, today, 2025, with this article in terms of some of the things the Western comic book artists, when they returned, felt they saw in that 95 environment. Yeah. So we're going to go through all of that. We're going to dip into a lot of that area. But to get us in the mood, let's watch a couple of trailers. This is from Streamline Pictures. So again, this is a trailer that Streamline Pictures released in the late 90s.
Those are the ones we were talking about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So we'll just got ourselves in the mood and listen to a promo trailer for Streamline Pictures' anime collection.
Leonard Dawson is the richest man in the world. Powerful people make enemies. If an enemy becomes a problem, someone calls the professional. Codename Golgo 13.
Target, former Nazi SS captain, Bernard Mueller.
I'll take the job.
He never kills for sport. He never misses the mark. And he never gets involved.
Can't you let this one go?
But this time, it's personal. The hunter has become the hunted. Because this time, he's the target.
We found Golgo 13. He's preparing to shoot, sir.
Go see if you got him this time.
We had him cornered, he was wounded, and yet he was neither captured nor sanctioned.
The next time, either he dies or you die.
I want to know who's really behind all this. Did you find out who ordered it?
I will not tolerate it a third time. Do you understand me? That the next time you fail is when you all die.
We have only one enemy.
Golgo 13. Kill him.
How long can the professional survive?
Okay, so that's a little snippet there of Golgo 13, a couple of other pieces, just putting us in how the West was positioning it. But
can I just say something first?
Yeah.
So, there's this screen here, and it shows the people who are looking at it on Twitch and YouTube. And when we started it, it went from 0, and then I saw it go up to 2. Then you started playing that, and it went down to 1.
Setting the scene. How will they understand what's happening next without that great little bit of animation? Anyway, what we are talking about though is more this. So again, that's very much that kind of idea of anime manga coming into the mid 90s, late 90s into the West as being subversive, adult based, violent, whereas this this interview we're going to unpack with Western comic artists is more touching into this, if you know this type of...
The Dark Crystal.
It's not the Dark Crystal.
There you go, Astro Boy.
Yeah, Astro Boy, yeah. So, Astro Boy, of course, Tezuka's most well-known property, I'd say. And again, an incredibly prolific manga artist. And this article is kind of unpacking this cultural first contact with a group of Western comics artists in '95 that went to Tokyo to see what this model of comic book making is about. So it was a lot of kind of Western uncertainty and unawareness and naivety about what the Japanese industry for comics is. Up until that point, you've pretty much just got Western commenters like Frederick Schott, who'd been living in Japan for quite a while, and helping translate a lot of Tezuka's work. He'd written Manga, The World of Japanese Comics, and he later followed it up a few years later with Dreamland Japan, both of which are unpacking this kind of 70s, 80s era manga space. What's fascinating today, and the reason why I want to visit this 95 piece, is there's a couple of really fascinating articles. One being Japanese artist shortage sees Kadokawa recruit overseas manga creators. So this is an article coming out of Essential Japan, published August 11th, 2025, which talks about how Kadokawa, one of the major Japanese publishers, has said there's a domestic talent shortage in manga in Japan at the moment, and they're looking to find creators from around the world that they can publish manga with.
That's what AI is.
That's what?
AI.
Well, at least they're not doing AI. What's really interesting here is the article goes on to say it's titled, it's a contest they've set up, so it's called the Worldless World Manga Contest. Worldless World. So I guess it's kind of that global manga. And it got a remarkable 1,126 submissions from 104 countries and regions. The entries were then judged on their artistic merit without relying on dialogue or text. Right? And that's a really interesting point. One of the things in this 95 article, and if people are interested in reading this interview, go to mediamothership.au, www.mediamothership.au. I'm mentioning that incidentally because that's where I've uploaded the article.
Yes.
It's not a shameless plug.
But it is.
Media Mothership, www.mediamothership.au. Anyway, so in there you can have a look. I'll be uploading that article later on tonight, so it's not there at the moment because I forgot to put it up. Damn. Anyway, so this article basically unpacks how, which is Tezuka's argument, right? So Tezuka, in the experience of these people that went in 95, they said one of the things they were left with from going to the Tezuka Foundation was the idea of Osamu Tezuka's promotion of manga as being a kind of international language.
Yeah.
Right? That it with comic images alone, you can tell a story. Even if you don't know the dialogue, if there's dialogue there and the word balloons and so forth, you can still pick up the story well enough just via the image. So comics and manga, so of course manga is the Japanese word for comics. It can be used more loosely than that in Japan, often referring to an entire visual culture. Mm-hmm. But in the West, it's mainly shoehorned into speaking specifically about comics.
Yeah.
So this Kadokawa contest is very much what Tezuka was hoping for before he passed away. That manga would become a kind of global language, and that he defined it as an international language. And so this idea of entries being judged on their artistic merit without relying on dialogue or text is all about the manga styles become so dominant that one can learn it and then get a career in Japan with it.
We've got a comment.
Oh, yes. Oh, great. Thank you very much. Can you read the name?
Not from here. I actually can't, sorry.
Nadine. Thank you so much for the hello greeting. So what we're talking about here, of course, is the impact of manga and anime in the West back in 95. The fact that today in 2025, one of the major manga publishers is scouring the world for new manga writers because there's a manga writer and artist shortage in Japan, it seems. And it raises this interesting question as to whether, for it to be considered manga, it doesn't need to be done by a Japanese person.
Yeah.
Because this article is saying no, right? That the manga style, as long as you can do the manga style, you can be from anywhere.
Yeah.
And it will still be called manga, and you will still have a Japanese publisher create it.
I can't think of any, examples of that yet. But surely there must have been some style.
Well, there's a lot of local Australian artists. There's Queenie Chan, based in Sydney, that's published a number of successful manga. She's also done the work of Dean Kunst, the horror author. She has adapted a number of his horror novels into manga.
Right.
And she's in fact, one of her first manga series, The Dreaming, and I know this because I spent some time during my PhD researching an interview with Queenie Chan before she broke big. Anyway, she based The Dreaming on a young friend of hers who went missing on a school trip to Tasmania. So maybe we can help resolve that too.
That reminds me of the what's his name? Matthew Riley. One of his first books was about a racetrack, like a space racetrack, which was just the whole of Tasmania.
Yeah. So again, Tasmanian comic artists could potentially. I think the competition's finished, but the next competition. And of course, Kadokawa did Gundam, so they're a big publishing house. There's a second article I just wanted to flag, which makes this interesting to look at. It's published in Automaton magazine. Headline, Western audiences growing tired of formulaic Disney titles is what paved the way for Japanese anime. Toei animation veterans say.
Absolutely true.
So this was an interview with some of the animation talent at Toei Animation, which is one of the big animation studios in Japan. In fact, it's Japan's oldest anime studio. And they were talking about how is it that anime today has become so globally successful. And their argument was, again, we're looking at this article in 95 shortly, that you can hear this dissatisfaction with, from the Japanese point of view, a kind of formulaic Disney model where comics and cartoons are only for kids and there's very little adult content that's there to be engaged with, or content that is not just family-friendly cartoons, right? So you'd have your Dragon Ball, you'd have your Gundam, you'd have main characters dying, you'd have Blackjack, another anime where you had, central protagonists like the House MD series. Anyway, you wouldn't just have... Well, Blackjack is... Yeah, it's an interesting story. Anyway, people can search that one later. It is basically talking about how the Japanese anime space, its popularity in the West was due significantly towards how stale and uncreative the comics industry had become. Even if you think about the dominance of superheroes with comics and animation. The argument being that Japanese anime offers eccentric and unpredictable storylines that set it apart from Western animation. They attribute anime's success to its unique blend of Japanese culture and storytelling, as well as its ability to cater to a wide range of tastes through its predominantly television-based production model. This approach allows for a constant turnover of new titles satisfying diverse audiences worldwide. And again, that idea that you've got this Japanese culture that's also part of its appeal, that it's something different, which is a very different model to Tezuka, right? He's arguing comics can be an international language in terms of, you don't need cultural specificness. So Astro Boy, there's nothing in Astro Boy that says Japan, specifically. It's not like he's eating Japanese food and is going to Japanese shops and he's performing only acts that would be understood within Japan. He's a very kind of, it's a science fiction setting in the near future. 2003, I think, was the near future that he set it in. But again, a lot of the success of anime is also that it hasn't shied away from its cultural engagement. And by that, I'd say it means it's not just family-friendly viewing. You've got Japanese manga and anime that are targeted at, learning how to cook, learning how to be a bit of business person. We've had one more comment from Nadine saying it's Leo.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Leo.
Excellent. Fantastic presenter here at Edge Radio. If you've got interest in eclectic concepts, listen in on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. to...
Fixation Sensation.
Fixation Sensation, that's right. All right, so let's jump into some ideas now in the article in terms of how it can interestingly open up some really interesting insights.
Yeah.
I'll get my music going. All right.
Oh, dear.
Welcome back to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. We're looking at East meets West with comics and animation.
The only thing that is East meets West that I can think of that's been, like, modern, Snowpiercer.
Doesn't that have a Korean director?
Korean director, French writer. Well, it's from a French comic. And then...
Yeah, and that's a very hybrid space. You wouldn't... nothing within it necessarily has soft power that is,
No.
it presents Korea in a way where it's like, I want to go to Korea. But in creative talent, it's a very global engagement space. And one of the things I was thinking of as I was reading this article set in 95 was the field trips that you and I have taken to Japan. So as a lecturer, I took over 8 years, 14, I think, groups of students from the University of Tasmania to Japan on field research, looking at soft power and comics industry.
Rubbish.
We did.
It was a holiday.
It was... Well, that was the trick, right? The fact that I got you in a... the analysis was tourism. So
of course.
How can't one enact tourism
Is
over
that
there?
an idea you got off Ozbargain?
Did we go to any animation studios?
No, we didn't go to an animation studio.
Okay,
there were karaoke.
There were some trips that I did where we did go to some animation studios. So some of this did ring very similar to those experiences. So the first one I think that found really interesting was in the 95 article, Brian Stelfreeze, who's at that point was working for Marvel Comics. So they brought him in because he was a superhero graphics artist.
Yep.
He did cover illustration art. There's a fascinating quote where, again, to quote Brian, he says, the Japanese artists say that in American comics, the artwork is far too detailed, that it belongs in a museum, not on comic book pages.
That's interesting.
You're too busy looking at the beautiful artwork. Yeah, and the point they're making, this is from the Japanese point of view, when they look at Western comics, like Superman or something written by Mobius, the artwork seems way too detailed.
Yeah.
That the comparing it to Japanese comics, and the fascinating argument here is that the Japanese animators and manga writers were saying that, well, you've got to understand, in Japan, often readers are flipping through each page in mere seconds. Right? Yeah. They're mainly picking up the story, and the artwork is facilitating that story in a highly stylized fashion. So they won't spend all this time. That is the Tezuka style, right? They won't spend all this time doing elaborate character features, backgrounds. I mean, there are some manga artists in 95 which were becoming immensely popular in the West because they were modeling themselves on a Western approach, like Katsuhiro Otomo, who did Akira, and Masamune Shirow, who did Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell. And that was very
Do you know what
Western.
Shiro means in Korean?
No.
It means don't like.
Oh, really?
Or
Shirow.
hate.
I think the Shirow that's being used for that author's name is White. I might be wrong. Masamune is, of course, a famous samurai blade.
Chicken Shiroyo.
Well, one of the things I'd like to get a comparison to is your own experience with K-pop. In terms of okay, so the Japanese are saying the detailing is way too realistic, that for the amount of pages they do per week, so they're doing 20 pages or something like that. Their page output is huge in Japan, but it's because it's very stylized. It's not going to be too detail-oriented because you're in service of the dialogue, which is driving the story, and also you're in service of the fact that this is some comics are very disposable, right? And they're just flipping them through quickly. And when I was in Japan at an animation studio and the students were getting kind of an intro course to Japanese manga, the animator said, or the comic artist, said that is one of the things he finds that separates Western and Japanese comic writers or authors, that you won't see, you rarely see a Japanese manga artist draw the tear duct for an eye, right? That little small spot. But you'll see many Western artists, comic book artists, Superman, do the tear duct. And he's saying that's one of the small indications of this detail-oriented Western comic style, which isn't needed in the Japanese manga style, right? That more stylistic, simplistic, but quick comic book art is the expectation. Certainly in the Tezuka style, there's big eyes and so forth.
And I'm thinking about noses too.
Yeah. It's all highly stylized, and it's quite revealing, I think, in terms of also how Japanese artists see Western comics as way too ornate, requiring way too much time and energy to create per page, when a comic book artist in Japan, and again, what this is kind of also suggesting is the brutal conditions under which Japanese comic book artists live, where they've got to hit all these huge page counts by the end of the week. They might, the interview was talking about how typically in the West you'd work on the one Batman series for the year, and the expectation is you'd slowly get out your artwork week by week to meet the page count requirements. He was saying with the discussions he was having with manga artists, some of those manga artists will get a year's worth of comic page count. So there's a new Astro Boy that they want, a year's worth of supply within a month, right? So you're pumping out 300, 400, 500 plus pages in that month crunch to get all of that done. And the only way you can do that is highly stylized artwork, where it's all very simplistic, but effective and expected. It's not looked down upon within the Western market. So it is fascinating to hear this reflection, which I think is still the case today. I mean, there are manga and anime, like I'd say Attack on Titan, which is realistic and which is not that Astro Boy Tezuka style. In fact, the Tezuka style very much dominated, I think, the Japanese manga space until there was a bit of a backlash in the 70s and 80s with the Gekiga style, right? Lupin, Sansei, more kind of detailing in some of the character designs. But it is an interesting East versus West engagement, and also it reflected my own experience in terms of when I was getting into manga, in particular in 95, it was the Japanese artists who were influenced by the Western style that I was reading. So Akira by Katsuhiro Otomo and Masamune Shirow, the Appleseed, Ghost in the Shell, Dominion Tank Police, were actually rebelling against the Tezuka style to create a more distinctive style for the Japanese market, which was modeled on Western comic style, which is more ornate, more hyper-detailed. And unsurprisingly, that was the stuff I was getting into. And of course, in Japan, that wasn't the mainstream stuff, right? It wasn't Anpanman, Doraemon, and the Tezuka stuff. I mean, I knew Astro Boy, but I didn't see that as the cool, trendy, subversive manga anime.
So the one that I think of, like when you're talking about, things that are a lot more simpler.
Pokemon?
No.
I mean, Pokemon certainly is simple.
It's simpler, but I'm talking really simple.
Really?
My Neighbours, the Yamada.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really pared back. That's an anime. I think it's a manga as well. That kind of four comic, Yonkoma. I think it's a 4-panel comic, right, with Sazai-san, and that's more of a newspaper manga, right, where it's a 4-panel comic, which we'd be familiar with. Well, maybe not now. I was familiar with newspapers. Well, the newspapers, you'd flip to the comic section in the newspaper, the cartoon section in the newspaper, and it would be full of these 4-panel comics. You'd have Phantom, Ghost Who Works. You'd have, Calvin and Hobbes, maybe. So Big Boy Nate's on.
Oh, for God's sake. He says, "What's up, Brotato Chip? Sorry I'm so late. Was doing math homework." And then he wants to get my number and email so I can be his resume contact.
Here we are, Media Mothership, talking about manga and anime and taking a time capsule look back at 95 and comparing it to 2025 through some comic book artist interviews that were published in 95. Okay, the other thing that I found really fascinating about the article was creator-owned content versus, you're working for a business model.
Yeah.
So Brian Stelfreeze goes on to say the entire comic book industry in Japan is creator-owned. They were really surprised that I would be a popular comic book artist and not have created a bunch of characters. Right, so he was explaining that when he was over in Japan, he'd have, as a comic book artist in industry events, he'd be asked by other industry players, what are your characters? What are the characters you've created? And he'd say, well, I work on Batman. And he goes, oh, you made Batman? You did Batman? I go, well, I didn't create Batman. I'm the current artist working on Batman. This title, as well as like Superman or Wolverine, X-Men, Cyclops, and he said the many Japanese creators couldn't believe that this highly respected Western comic artist had no characters, right? Whereas the Japanese model is all creator-owned content creation, where Tezuka's got Astro Boy, Kimber. You might be in a group like Gainax who are creating their own canon, but it's very much that creator-owned business model. I mean, what's this is slightly not revealing, of course, is that Tezuka, Miyazaki, all of these creator-owned comics, manga, and anime industries also have a kind of apprenticeship model, much like Picasso or Da Vinci. A lot of the artwork is done by their apprentices.
Yeah. And in the case of Miyazaki, he got his son to do it and then was very disappointed in him.
Oh, well, that Tales of Earthsea. It does underscore a major structural difference between the Japanese creator-owned model and the American corporate-owned character model, where you'd go to work for DC or Marvel, you'd be given Batman, Spider-Man, Superman as the character you're working on, and that's where you'd build your. I mean, they did bring some indie comic, and again, since '95, I'd say the one thing that has changed are webcomics, right? The webcomic model is this Japanese model more? I mean, it's a creator-owned space. You're unlikely to become super famous with webcomics to then subsidize it with an apprenticeship space, but maybe. But it does still highlight, I think it's still an existing cultural divide between how that's set up. I mean, Marvel and DC still dominate much of the comic book space, unless you look at the Scholastic comic book sales, right? This fascinating YouTube was saying that most comics are sold through the Scholastic book sales, right? And the DC and Marvel space is a small fraction of the overall comic sales in the West, and that most of them are from Scholastic. And if you look at the comics in Scholastic, they're not Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. There are some.
But what are they?
It's like Bone and Minecraft. I think the Minecraft comic.
Right. Okay, yeah.
There's all these, some proprietary stuff, but it's all these like Adventure Time, right? I mean, any of this kind of Scholastic comic book stuff is, and it's not superhero.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it does introduce a really interesting comparison. I think it is changing somewhat. Moving on to the next interesting quote. Okay. Yes, you're listening to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM.
With that lovely discordant music.
We're talking about... I'd love you to... Do you want to do music?
No.
We're talking about East meets West with manga and anime, and an interview with some Japanese and Western comic book creators.
Yep.
So the other quote that I found fascinating was escapism versus culture. Brian goes on to say, the biggest thing about American comics is that it's actually escapism from the culture, You actually read an American comic to get away from things. You're especially not reminded of what's going on. And he contrasts this with what he sees as the Japanese comic space, which he sees as much more of a cultural engagement. That is what he's pointing out here is that Western comics, at that time in 95 in particular, still today, are dominated by superheroes. And that superhero space is, it's a metaphor, it's an anecdote for real-world issues and problems. But compare that to the Japanese comic market, where, yes, you'll have some superhero stuff, One Punch Man today, but you'll also have fishing manga, cooking manga, baseball manga, swimming manga, manga set in the feudal period.
Cooking Mama.
Yes. Cooking Mama. I'm trying to remember any cooking manga I've read recently. Cooking Papa? But yeah. So it's an interesting comparison there with this idea of the diversity of Japanese comics. Have you ever picked up any or experienced comic books that aren't superhero based? Like
does Sergeant Frog count?
Well, I'm wondering, like, one of the things that comics can appear in is when you're opening a textbook and the explanation will be a comic, right? It'll be either a one-panel sketch. Are there any textbooks you've encountered which use the comic style to...
Probably. Why would I remember that, though?
If you're a student, SMS in now on 0488 707 if you have any vivid memories of comic books as your learning tool in school today. That is, you're reading biology and there's a page on the birth of the baby, but it's a comic.
One of the most popular ways of teaching Shakespeare now is to use a comic for that.
Yeah.
Macbeth, the comic. Romeo and Juliet, the comic.
Yeah, feel free to hit us up, Big Boy 80, if there's any schooling experience you've had where it's been a page of comic in a textbook that has been the explanation.
Okay, so he has replied and says, have you ever watched the anime The Wind Rises? I don't remember how good it was, but it was the first anime I ever watched. I think it was seen as controversial, though, due to its ties to Imperial Japan.
Oh, yeah. Is this the...
That's the Studio Ghibli one.
Yes, I have. Fascinating. It's a really interesting time capsule of... Because it tells the story of the creator of the Zero airplane.
Yeah.
Right? Or at least the model that I think preceded the Zero, with gull-shaped wings, which was... quite a deep dive into both the kind of artistic process of creation, but also, it was dealing with a period of time in the 1930s Japan, which was the rise of a military dictatorship, a militarized kind of pseudo-fascist Japanese repressive state space.
Yeah.
And I think, part of that is in the film as he struggles with those militarized requirements. I really enjoyed it. I mean, also one of the fascinating things about Studio Ghibli, of course, is it pays a lot of homage to Italian aeronautical design, right? Ghibli
Porco
is
Rosso.
Yeah, Porco Rosso. I think Ghibli itself is an aeronautical term.
No, it's not.
What is it?
It's a term for wind in the desert.
Well, yeah, which is flight-based.
I suppose.
Well worth watching. I mean, Ghibli is, again, one of the things that's not in there at 95, right? 1995 is pre-Ghibli, which is one of the really fascinating
Not really.
things. Well, what have you got? You've got some of Miyazaki's early work, but
Totoro?
in terms of the Western engagement.
That's true.
Yes, entirely right. Ghibli stuff was definitely around
70s.
before 95. But in terms of it actually coming to the Western shores, I don't think there were any distributors in 95 for Ghibli's work.
And now there's only Madman Entertainment.
Well, there's others. There's others that are
Not
doing
really.
Ghibli. I think, where's it streaming, though? I mean, it wouldn't be streaming. It's streaming on Disney.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Lady got back and said, schooling experience, I don't think I've ever seen any comics that have related to school. So,
Well, so that might take the fun out of comics,
Yeah.
right? Nothing can suck the fun out of something more than having it as a school project. Any school teachers wishing to get innovative, Media Mothership's always happy to help, though.
Yep, of course.
All right, so some cultural stereotypes there as well. The Japanese, they are, so to quote again Brian, talking about this, how many pages the manga artists are able to create in Japan, right? And how shocked they were at, you can only do, 10 pages a week or something, or 5 pages a week, whereas they're doing in the hundreds. He said, the Japanese, they are efficient. They're really super efficient at getting the job done. Yes, it can certainly seem that way when they're bragging about each other's page counts, but it really does reveal the kind of human cost, I think, of the manga industry, that pressure, that overwork pressure of the Japanese manga industry, the kind of mangaka, the manga artist burnout that number reveals, I think is you can be in awe of it, but you can also acknowledge, I think, the human cost.
Yeah.
Probably also that romanticized view. I mean, as a Westerner, it can be super appealing to think that Kadokawa is looking for manga artists, and you love manga and you love reading manga, but it can be a bit of a romanticized view of it, where you're seeing it as I'm going to be highly efficient and create all these manga, but also it's, what are the working conditions that you're under? Maybe that's why there's labor shortages, that the working conditions are too onerous today, and you're not being paid enough.
Of course. Well, I remember back to seeing that. I can't remember what movie it's from, but it's another Miyazaki one, and it's 5 seconds of film, and it took, what was it, 2 years to animate?
The Miyazaki?
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's a scene where there's about maybe 70 to 80 different actors, like, moving about in sort of like a bustling town square sort of thing.
Yeah, look, and some of that artwork, and again, you can see why a more stylized model of
exactly
just kind of like, yes, that could take 2 years, and I'd only create that much work. Fantastic, but hey, you've got another 2 hours you want to deliver. So yeah, looking at again that idea of efficiency, I guess. Ultimately, I mean, what I found really fascinating about reading through this interview, and again, it's up there tonight, not now, on www.mediamothership.au, is Osamu Tezuka, right?
Wow.
That, the final page of the interview is them raving about how amazed they are about Tezuka's work and energy, how they really felt the kind of cultural esteem that comic book creators have in Japan. And a lot of that being the effort of artists like Tezuka. with creations like Astro Boy and others.
Yeah.
So it's worth checking out on YouTube. There are a number of compilations of Osamu Tezuka going into all the other work he created during his life. An enormous number of comics created. So well worth checking out. If all you know about Tezuka is Astro Boy, or Kimber the White Line, or Ribbon no Kishin, I think is the Japanese title. If you're loving Ghibli, I'd suggest Tezuka is a good historical homework exercise.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like some historical homework exercises? So, Big Boy Needy, I think we've appreciated your comments.
Yeah, as usual.
Thanks, Nadine and Leo, for posting in. Next week on Media Mothership, what aren't we going to be doing next week?
Open world games.
Massive multiplayer open world games. Well, okay, so my plan with Media Mothership, just to get people excited about our Kickstarter,
Yeah.
is to bring us into the virtual world.
Yeah.
If I can upgrade all of my equipment to embed Edge Radio's Media Mothership into Grand Theft Auto is my goal. Much like those Shakespearean actors were able to do Shakespeare in Grand Theft Auto.
Yep.
My aim will be, or maybe a zombie game, right? DayZ, do the radio in DayZ, massive multiplayer. So yes, maybe not next week. If we can, next week would be great. We're going to start reviewing massive multiplayer online games to find the best one that could house a synchronous Media Mothership broadcast. So we'd be live on air in the studio, Nipaluna, Hobart, Tasmania, Edge Radio Studio 1. Then we'd be also virtually in our video game space, Grand Theft Auto, or akin to that. Then we'd be on Twitch and YouTube. Where aren't we, right? And I want to be everywhere, anywhere, all at once.
Good show. Really good show.
Thanks very much for listening. Again, if you've not engaged with Tezuka's work, do have a look at that. The Tezuka Museum is in Osaka, Japan. If you're ever over there, check it out. Show notes will be up on the Media Mothership website. Listen back to previous episodes via podcast or on YouTube live stream. And I've been Craig for another week. You've been listening to Media Mothership with co-host Taylor.
Goodbye.
Taylor. And next week, yes, we'll be jumping into video games or maybe more manga or Godzilla. I want to get back to Godzilla.